Hello, and welcome to the Simply Business Interview Podcast, a podcast created by business owners for business owners. I am your host, John Jennings. And I believe that most business owners are working way too hard for much too little. And one of our issues is that we overcomplexify things. I believe the answers are almost always within us or within our reach. I like to say that I'm a simple man with simple ideas. So welcome to Simply Business. Today, I'm joined by John Rabold, who is the President and Chief Development Officer at Granite Management. John, thank you for joining us today. Looking forward to hearing more about your story. Let's start with you kicking off with a little background of yourself, who you are and what you do.
Yeah, thanks, John. Pleasure to be on. My background, I'm from Bloomington, Indiana, graduated from the Kelley School of Business at Indiana University. Spent my career across different industries since graduation, anything from manufacturing to professional development, and then private equity. My goal and desire has always been to pursue an entrepreneurial dream, which kind of hovered across private equity and equity investing. So I had an opportunity for a few years to work in a boutique private equity firm based out of New York, but I helped to run it from Bloomington. Great experience. Back in 2018, I had my first opportunity to acquire an operating business. It was a waste management company here in Southern Indiana that serviced residential and commercial waste and recycling needs for residential and commercial customers. Bought that in 18. We grew it pretty substantially, almost doubled it in about a 5-year period, and we just exited back at the end of 23. I was relatively passive in that role. I helped initiate the deal, but I knew that it wasn't enough to carve out a full-time job for myself. So at the time, the PE firm I was with was getting ready to shut down over time. I got connected with Granite, and they brought me on as their COO. And since then, over the last 5 years, we've grown substantially. We went from one market to being in I think now we're almost in double-digit markets, multiple states, and I'm now, I've served across multiple executive roles, COO, CRO, CDO, and now the president role since the beginning of the new year. So it's been a lot of fun.
Excellent. And tell us exactly what Granite does. As I was joking earlier, you're not a mining company. You're not digging rock out of the ground. So tell us what you do.
Yeah, so Granite is a real estate management firm, mostly focused in property management, with a heavy focus on student housing across several tier 1 schools like Purdue, Indiana University, and Virginia Tech, as well as some secondary markets. And then more recently, we've grown into the market rate housing sector, so young professional, non-student housing, with probably our biggest market being the greater Indianapolis market.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
So you were telling me how you have a very entrepreneurial CEO and you're a entrepreneurial-minded operations person, and just kind of how that works. Talk a little bit about the culture in the organization and how you're able to manage a sustained growth.
Yeah, well, when I first got connected with the managing principal at Granite, I was looking at, hey, I got to get another job, right? Like the PE firm was going to close. I couldn't close on another entrepreneurial venture in time. So I knew I had one more job I needed to do before I could, really actualize, being a fully funded entrepreneur. When I met Brent, the CEO and managing partner at Granite, I fell in love with his mindset, very similar entrepreneurial driven mindset. He really wanted to grow the company, which to me seemed really exciting. I didn't want to go somewhere that was stagnant or had already reached its perceived potential. But, in the early days, I still thought, hey, this is just a stomping ground for where I'm going. I don't know how long I'll be here, but I wanted to try to add as much benefit as I could. Fast forward 5 years, it's hard to envision doing anything else. So the thing that I really enjoyed about it is I can be an employee and an entrepreneur in the same here at Granite. So I've been really empowered and given a lot of autonomy to take a vision to grow the business and run with it and try to achieve that in the best manner I can. And so that's been really fun. The culture is great. Very open to collaboration. Very uh, gracious in regards to being understanding about mistakes. Um, and what I've always endeared is, yeah, you're in it to make money. You want to grow to make more money, but part of our purpose for wanting to grow so substantially is to continue to give our employees more opportunity to grow in their career. Because if you get to a point in your company where, growth is stagnant or non-existent, not only do you limit the ability for people to grow in their career, but a lot of people find that disinteresting and they start to look elsewhere. And the growth that we've been able to take on the last few years has really allowed people that have been with the company for several years to grow, take on more responsibility, more compensation earning opportunity, and we've created new roles to sustain the growth. So it's been really fun, and I think people really enjoy the culture. It still feels like a family, environment, but we are across several markets. So the challenge we have right now is how do you maintain a culture that spreads across different states, different markets where people don't get to interact as much in person,
Right.
but you're still keeping some of the core goals, consistent across the board. And for us, the three main objectives that we lead with each day is to provide humility, integrity, and accountability. And if nothing else, those three things have to prevail pretty much at all times.
Excellent. So you you're attracting we talked a little bit earlier about it's kind of a tough market to keep younger professionals interested and buying into the vision, and part of that is those values. I know those speak to the especially the Gen Z perspective, the under we'll say the under 30 crowd. What else are you doing to keep them engaged and committed to the kind of the long term there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was actually in a executive forum yesterday where we were talking about the generational differences in the workforce, what motivates them, what they're looking for. I think for us, we want to make sure that everybody feels heard, everybody feels empowered to do good work, that you're combining both a compensation goal that they can attain to, which is important for everybody, even if they say it's not as important, that, people don't work for free. So you want to give them an opportunity to optimize their earning income to the extent you can, but also give them a good purpose with what they're doing. So, there's no role in our company that isn't, a significant contributor to both the day-to-day operation, but also the bottom line from a financial standpoint. So it's great. And we've got several entry-level positions where people come in. Oftentimes they're filled by the younger generation. And, I think they either have an opportunity to progress in the company in different roles with different responsibilities, or they leave the company because they've had an opportunity to gain good experience with us and then go pursue something that's, either a better fit for them or something that's, the next level in their career that maybe isn't currently available at Granite. And so, our goal is to make sure they feel heard, that we understand how they're wired, knowing that not every two people are motivated by in the same way.
Yeah.
So, I think if you listen first, it seems to go a long way. And then, we're constantly talking internally about what are the tools to retain top talent. And some of it's compensation related. Some of it with the newer or younger generation is different than what it was historically. So, we see a lot of our traditional IRA contribution or opt-ins are lower than maybe they used to be. Part of
Right.
that's because the younger generation maybe doesn't necessarily value that as much or not yet, and they value other things differently. So we're constantly trying to figure out what is it that we can give them as an option that provides retention, provides value, but meets them where they're at versus not trying to find a one size fits all
Yeah.
solution.
Yeah, I was actually meeting with a client yesterday about that very topic. One is retaining, but also, like I said, always giving them a challenge that they're going to want to stick around with, and then kind of being mature enough and humble enough to go, yeah, I don't think we are the right place for you now.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think you need, and that's really a a difficult it's just a difficult decision for a leader to do, to say, yeah, you're a great employee, but I don't have anything really left
for you, except maybe
Yeah.
my job. And you
Yeah.
don't
And
want to do that yet.
I'm a big believer too, is, we're not proprietary over our employees, right? So part of my goal is to make sure that we try to do everything we can so that whether it's with Granite or whether it's their next job at a different company, that we've done everything we can to put them in the best position going forward for their career. I think if you put that as an emphasis for young people, one, I think they naturally feel protected by you and that you have their best interest. But one, I think they tend to stay longer actually because they know you care, and two, they they don't feel scared to let you know what they want. And I think when you find out what somebody wants and they don't feel a reservation to hide that from you, the better a relationship can be, and then the more there's just everybody's kind of all in for one another.
So how do you stay abreast with kind of industry trends and things like that? What's your approach of staying innovative and current and adaptable and that sort of thing?
Well, I mean, I try to make sure I'm never the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
I may carry a important or a perceived important title, but rarely at the table am I the smartest or most innovative person there. So I'm surrounded by great people who are constantly, within their area or niche of the industry within our business, bringing things to the table. And we encourage it all the time because I love change. I love new technology. I love new ways of doing things, assuming that they add value. So I'm kind of always questioning what we do, which I think further empowers the different stakeholders in our company to say, let me make sure we know at all times what's out there. How are other people doing it? How are we doing it? Is there a better way to do it? So I'm kind of always questioning and never settling for, the status quo. I wouldn't pretend to be, an industry expert at any given point in time. I try to read, I try to stay in touch with some different publications that we get and attend different conferences. But my time has gotten so spread thin. I'm on lot of different calls. I'm diving in a little bit of everywhere in the company. So I'm really reliant on the people that are, considered the professionals in their respective departments to bring innovative ideas to the table. And I mean, it's been so much fun watching these different team members bring new technology, new software, new ways of thinking, throwing them out the table. Not everything sticks, obviously, but just being really open to new ways of doing things, which just seems to foster a really positive environment around what does change look like. Because so many people perceive change as a negative thing. A lot of people hate change or apprehensive to change. And I don't think people are wired to dislike change. I think they're just wired to like it if you don't educate them on why it can be really beneficial. And so we're constantly looking out to see what's new, how the industry is operating. The student housing sector of our business changes a lot.
Really?
It looks quite a bit different than traditional market rate housing.
Sure.
So we're probably focused more on that niche of real estate because things are constantly changing and the markets, no two markets are the same. For instance, we started in the Purdue University market and grew a pretty significant presence there. And we thought the next logical market for us was Indiana University, 2 hours south. Well, you couldn't have possibly found two completely different worlds, right?
Yeah.
And the way of doing business in one was not necessarily the same way you could do it in another. And so we're constantly trying to learn from other groups, but also being innovative and cutting edge as well.
Yeah. A couple of things came to mind there in your comment. And yeah, by the way, about 40% of people don't like change unless they really understand the reason.
Yep.
There's an old saying, I don't even know who said it, but people don't resist change, but victims do.
Mm.
I think I think that's often the case. Um, you mentioned being spread thin, that sort of thing. I know you've got a family. Uh, how do you maintain work-life balance? That's a big issue for the leaders I work with. I know.
Yeah, I mean it's an issue for me too. I've got a phenomenal wife,
That's a good
who
start.
yeah, and that to me is it's everything.
Yeah.
I mean I've got a good faith background, and I've got a good wife, and to me those are the anchors to stability. for me, one, she loves me where I'm at, but she also holds me accountable. So when I'm home and the kids are around, it's be home, be present, right? Don't just be home, be present, because there were times in my career, and I'm still guilty of it today, but probably not as much, where my mind was elsewhere. Like my body was there, but my mind was elsewhere. So she can sense it and she holds me accountable. I may not always like it when she does it at the time, because but I realize how important it is. So I really try to focus on my kids. Our family's pretty young, so all the way from 9 to newborn, and I realize that this span of my life is short. So there are certain hobbies and personal interests that I don't get to as much, especially with my career. But I realize that's short lived. So my focus
Yeah.
right now is at home. I'm devoted to my family. I help coach my kids' sporting events, but my career is important, and there's areas I could really improve upon. But I work, a lot at late evenings, a lot of early mornings. I try to optimize my day. But I also love work. I love what I do on a day job, and I also have an investment company on the side. And those are part of my passions, and at least my hobby that can replace other recreational hobbies that I maybe don't get to as much. So I don't know it's a perfect balance. I've got this executive forum that's I've been able to participate in here and there, and that's been helpful because I'm around like-minded people or people in similar situations, and we're really can put ourselves in vulnerable states to be able to get really good feedback and guidance on how to make that balance a priority. But I'm certainly not an expert by any means. But I do
Yeah.
know work and everything that's great, have to have it. I love it, but not to the sacrifice that it impacts my relationship with my wife or my kids.
Excellent. Great. Yeah, and there's no such thing as true balance. It's a bad word that we use, but we
Yeah.
we do the best we can, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's I love that answer. And
Well,
your
thank you.
wife, make sure you replay that for your wife, by the way, when we post it. Uh, so let's go back to the business again, and just we're just one last kind of question about the future of the business. If you could wave a magic wand and say, here's what I see next for Granite. Where do you see you going in the next year or two?
Well, so I mean, the great thing is the vision of the company has lofty goals. We want to manage, several thousand units and beds across the country. In a couple of years, I foresee we'll double or triple our size. I think that's a realistic goal, and that can come through, growth with our existing clients, as well as acquisitions of other businesses that we've made, similar to what we've made in the past. Um, so I think, in 2 or 3 years, this company keeps its core principles the same, but the landscape looks different, both geographically and financially. And with that comes the opportunity to bring on uh, even more great talent, empower more people. I don't think, the student housing or uh, market rate housing sectors, going to change all that much over the next few years. But it changes enough that we have to be on our toes.
Right.
So yeah, that's where I think it goes. And then from a, investment standpoint, I've continued to have a lot of passion in that. So investing in operating businesses and the equities market is something I have a lot of passion for.
Cool. I usually end with what word of advice would you give to an aspiring entrepreneur? But I think I would just refer them back to the question before last. I think you gave some great advice to a young entrepreneur, especially one with a young family. That's but is there anything else you would add to that?
Well, no, I mean, I was in this executive forum yesterday. I was sitting next to a 20-year-old and a 22-year-old who had very established, successful businesses. One of them started when they were 9, and one of them started when they were in high school. And I was so impressed by them. And one of the things, neither one of them had gotten married yet, or had kids. So for them, the priority of just continuing to grow the business was so
Right.
important for them, and that's great. But it was fun because you could tell that they were so interested in making sure that they do those things right, but also live well, live through, having a good faith and family and whatnot. And so, my only advice is, work and your career can't be everything. But if you find passion in it, allow it to be healthy, but be surrounded by people that can hold you accountable to living the right way and honoring one another. And to me, I think it's all about who you surround yourself with, because no matter what goal you have or dream you have or what career you're in, you're really only as good as the people you surround yourself with.
Yeah, very good. Great advice. Great advice. Well, John, thanks for your time today. And if anybody would like to get in touch with you, maybe someone would love to work for a guy like you, or something like that. What's the best way of getting in touch with you and find out more about Granite?
Yeah, well, you can, always shoot me a text or call 812-345-1417. Email's probably the easiest way. My Granite email is jrabold@granitesl for studentliving.com.
Okay. We'll add that into the comments on the post as well. So, John, again, thank you for your time. It's great hearing your story. This is a little different from a lot of the interviews I have, but I appreciate the perspective of someone who is getting to live the entrepreneurial life in a little less traditional entrepreneurial setting, but it's still cool. So thank you again for your time.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked it, please share or like it on whatever platform you use. You can find me on social media. On most platforms, I'm John K. Jennings. My first book is also available. Your Baby is Ugly tells you about 10 truths that business owners need to hear, but often won't, and how to overcome them. You can find it on Amazon. Just search for Your Baby is Ugly. And be watching for our next episode, where I'll interview another business owner who will share their stories and insights into what it's like to create a great business.